Hi, I'm Will Smith. Today we're going to be talking about young adult literature. We're going to be talking about why it was focused on young adults. We're talking about the age range. We're going to be talking about the difference between young adult literature, and the other age ranges of literature. So let's get right into it. Young adult literature's age range is roughly 12 to 18. This can go younger and or older, but it's typically in that space. They created young adult literature to focus on children, to make it more appropriate for the children to be reading, so they're not reading stuff that is too outlandish or too risque, as one might say. Young adult literature is different from other literatures because it is focused on the children. So that's typically the characters and the stories will be anywhere in that age range. Generally, they want them to be fairly close to the age of the reader. So it will be somewhere that is, probably like a 15-year-old, or maybe on the upper end, 18 or a 20-year-old. They might put it a little older if they're trying to catch people reading it to fantasize about being just that little bit older, especially when they get to be about 16, all they can think about is wanting to be 18. But they created young adult literature to focus more in and to grab the attention. They don't want it to be too childish, but they don't want it to be super bad and inappropriate for the age range that is going to be reading it. They, generally speaking, these are romantic books, action books, sci-fi, fantasy, adventure, that kind of. There is some horror books in there, and sometimes some comic books, but young adult literature as a whole has a lot of classics in it. For example, The Outsiders, that's a classic. But it was generally was created to make sure that they weren't reading inappropriate things, and that they were also maybe even learning life lessons that are more true. Not just like, oh, you should share and be nice to your friends. It's more like, if you burn somebody, sometimes they will end up burning you back. So that is young adult literature. And
Sometimes I wish they'd ask for my wisdom more often. There are so many things I could tell them, things I wish they would change, but they don't want change. Life here is so orderly, so predictable, so painless. It's what they've chosen. My name is Macy, and the quote that I just read to you comes from a young adult literature book written by Lois Lowry. Lois Lowry wrote The Giver in 1993. The Giver is a science fiction novel that follows the life of a boy named Jonas. Jonas is a boy coming upon the age of 12. He lives in a community of sameness that follows orderly and predictable practices. All members of the community are unable to harbor memories, have uniqueness, or make their own choices. Even marriages are arranged and children are assigned to homes, one boy and one girl per family. With the lack of memory, the community is at risk of falling back into mistakes that they have already made in the past rather than learning from them. To combat this problem, there is one designated person that holds all of the memories in his or her head. In this case, Jonas is named the new memory keeper at the coming of age ceremony that takes place when the year's 11-year-olds would graduate to age 12. Many of the new 12-year-olds are assigned to be nurturers, teachers, or other normal occupations. In Jonas's case, his assigned career is going to be much more painful and difficult than others. When he is assigned his task, he will then meet the giver. The giver has been the holder of the memories in the past and is now tasked with transferring the memories to Jonas. This proves difficult as Jonas has to be courageous and strong enough to be the only one in his community to understand the pain. As Jonas starts to see everything that his fellow community members are unable to experience, he devises a plan to show the community members that there is more to life than sameness and rules. In The Giver, one of the most important themes that I found is the importance of the individual. In The Giver, colors are taken out of the world, so everything is black and white, no shiny colors, pretty eyes, different colored hair, different colored skin. All of it is taken away. Everything is black and white. There's also no personality that you're able to kind of show the world without risk of punishment. In The Giver, the entire community is unknowingly forced into this sameness. Since that's all they've ever known, though, they don't see an issue with it. Uniqueness is considered humiliating here, and enough for a discharge from the community. Only The Giver and Jonas are aware of the issue because they are the only two that can see how things were before the sameness occurred. So I was first introduced to The Giver in junior high, just like all of my classmates and a lot of other readers that I've met with, and I really enjoyed The Giver a lot. I didn't completely understand The Giver on a deep level then, but I've been able to reread it several times, and it's a fun one to go back and revisit. And since I've done that, I've caught a lot of new interesting aspects that I really love about it. And I wanted to know if other people loved it as much as me. So I looked at other responses from Amazon buyers, and most reviews actually said that, well, most reviewers had positive feedback. On Amazon, there were 16,850